The Pelosi one, an almost cult-like following for her financial disclosures, saw the value of her household's portfolio rise by 71% in recent years. Like, that kind of trading is super unusual.
Yeah.
To make more than double the average gain of 24.9. So make more than 50%. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
Joe Rogan just lit up the internet again. And this time, he's taking direct aim at Nancy Pelosi. In a recent episode of his podcast, Rogan didn't hold back for even a second. He tore into Pelosi over the explosive accusations surrounding her family's suspiciously successful stock trades. Trades that have sparked a nationwide firestorm. The timing, the profits, the patterns, everything about it has Americans asking the same question. What is really going on behind the scenes?
Here, let's watch this because it's so funny.
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the stop the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it, my husband is, but it isn't anything to do with anything insider.
And here's where things get even more eyebrow-raising. Nancy Pelosi is now supporting something called the Pelosi Act, a bill that, ironically, aims to stop members of Congress and their spouses from trading individual stocks. Sounds noble, right? But critics can't ignore that Pelosi and her husband's wealth has skyrocketed in ways that don't quite match a lifetime spent in public service. When Pelosi was pressed on these sudden gains, she didn't clarify anything. Instead, she pivoted straight to Donald Trump, a move many say is a classic political distraction tactic.
But the president has his own exposure, so he's always projecting. I'd rather not go into some of my other complaints about him right now, rather to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid.
Okay. First of all, what crazy projection. She immediately turned herself into a victim. She immediately went from Jake Tapper's like, what's your response? Oh, this is ridiculous. Nothing was insider. Nothing. We have $400 million, whatever. What's really important is Trump inspired a man who broke. First of all, how do you know? That guy was a literal crazy person that broke into that house.
According to critics, this is becoming a tired playbook. Whenever Pelosi is cornered with tough questions, she simply drags Donald Trump into the conversation and hopes the noise drowns out the real issue. It's political sleight of hand. Shift the spotlight, stir the chaos, and watch accountability disappear. Even during campaign season, the same deflection was used repeatedly. And despite voters growing frustrated with these tactics, Pelosi and her allies continue the same routine as if the public won't notice.
He had a hammer. He smashed the back window. He broke into the house. Paul thought that he could talk the guy down. It looked like Paul had a drink in his hand, so he's probably a little lit.
Yeah.
Probably a little more calm than he should have been. And then the cops are at the door, and the dude hits him in the head with a hammer. That guy was a crazy person. You're blaming Donald Trump for that?
No.
That's so nuts that you have gone from... You made an insane amount of money. A lot of people say you're insider trading. What's your response to that? Donald Trump, my husband got hit in the head with a hammer.
They're all black belts at deflection.
He thinks it's funny.
It didn't help that Jake Tapper avoided pressing Pelosi further on the insider trading allegations, a detail critics immediately seized upon. He seemed to realize Pelosi's answers were flimsy, but still let her skate free without a single follow-up question. Joe Rogan, however, wasn't fooled. On his podcast, he dismantled Pelosi's narrative, calling out the wild leaps in logic, the lack of evidence, and the conveniently crafted deflection. To Rogan, it was pure political theater, a high-ranking figure dodging real accountability while dumping the blame onto a familiar target.
There's a reason why that whole ability to trade stocks is still in position. And it's because they want it there. They make a ton of money. The general
and they have
public,
all the insider information.
So they have to figure out at what point in time is this too dangerous. and who's willing to like make this a law? Who's willing to change this? And what politicians are going to sign on board for that? Because they're actually voting against their own self-interest.
The truth is, politicians from both sides of the aisle have been dragging their feet on the Pelosi Act for one simple reason. It threatens their own financial perks. A ban on congressional stock trading would essentially cut off their personal cash flow. So naturally, they stall, dodge, and debate endlessly. This isn't about Democrats versus Republicans. It's about protecting their own pockets. Until lawmakers decide that transparency matters more than their portfolios, this frustrating cycle will continue.
It's like they're playing chicken. Like, as long as they don't do it, as long as they don't do it, then they can still make a ton of money. But if you look at the numbers, like if you look at like who's making money on the stock market, it is not all Nancy Pelosi. It is red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. It's pretty much down the middle.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you could skirt the legalities, why would you not take information that you have gained and try to utilize it to your improvement?
And you're hanging out with Harry, the senator from South Dakota or whatever, and Harry's got a yacht. Like, how'd you get a yacht, Harry? Yeah. Like, you know, Bobby's got his own private jet. How'd you get your own jet, Bob? You're a congressman. Like, what are you doing?
Pelosi isn't the only politician under fire for questionable stock activity. Rogan himself pointed out that this is a bipartisan problem. Figures like former Republican Senator David Perdue were reportedly among the most active traders in the Senate, buying and selling stocks tied to committees they served on. Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse has also faced scrutiny for trades made during sensitive times. Still, Pelosi inevitably becomes the face of the controversy, partly because of her prominence, and partly because her family's massive portfolio makes her an easy lightning rod whenever the topic of political profit comes up.
Okay. More than 20 members made almost double the S&P 500 average gain, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So,
you tell me it's like 0.5% more, but percentage more? Okay.
David Rouser, Republican, North Carolina. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Democrat, Florida. Ron Wyden, Democrat, Oregon. Roger Williams, Republican, Texas. See, that's the point. It's like, it's not blue, it's not red. It's just corruption across the board. They're all doing it. If you're making more than 50%, that's bananas. The Pelosi one, an almost cult-like following for her financial disclosures, saw the value of her household's portfolio rise by 71% in recent years.
Rogan doesn't stop with Pelosi. He highlights that many lawmakers benefit, directly or indirectly, from the privileged access and insider knowledge that comes with public office. While not every case is proven, the patterns are suspicious enough to make the public question the entire system. And the biggest frustration, Congress openly acknowledges the problem, yet the reforms meant to fix it remain stuck in political limbo. Why? Because meaningful reform threatens their own financial comfort. Until accountability outweighs personal gain, the credibility of Congress will continue to erode.
Like, that kind of trading is super unusual.
Yeah.
To make more than double the average gain of 24.9. So make more than 50%. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
No, and how do you explain that?
And
like,
how do you explain those
super
decisions?
Genius? Yeah.
When you look at the decisions, like she dumped stock, and then 3 months later, some big bill comes down the line that f***s that company.
Yeah.
She buys stock, and then 3 months later, some big bill that comes down that, you know, they're funding for this new project. It's crazy. More than a dozen U.S. officials sold stocks before Trump's tariffs sent the market plunging. Of course they did.
Pelosi's case stands out because of how dramatically her family's wealth has grown during her decades in office. When she entered Congress in 1987, her family reportedly held around $600,000 to $785,000 in stocks. Today, that number has exploded to more than $133 million in stock holdings alone. Her total net worth is estimated between $250 million and $280 million. Much of that growth comes from high-performing trades, especially in major tech companies. For example, in late 2023, the Pelosi's bought NVIDIA call options worth millions at a bargain price. That investment has now soared in value, beating the market and outperforming many hedge funds. Critics argue this kind of success looks more like a Wall Street Titan's portfolio than that of a longtime public servant.
How about that?
And yet still, like, poor people are sitting here arguing about who's the better person. Like, it's f***ing wild. Like, they're all corrupt and they're all f***ing us.
Well, some less than others. Some are
Certainly,
allowing us
certainly.
to talk. Look, it's all weird, man, because this system is completely f***ed. It's completely f***ed. And we don't want it to be, and they want it to stay the way it is. And so there's this weird thing where they have to get elected. So to get elected, they have to say the things that we want them to say. And so then we believe it every year, like fucking Charlie Brown going to kick that football, and Lucy pulls it away.
Meanwhile, everyday Americans are the ones paying the price. We're used as political pawns, moved, manipulated, and targeted with promises that sound inspiring, but rarely translate into real change. Politicians craft narratives that serve their careers, not the people. Issues that impact us directly, from the economy to safety to healthcare, often take a backseat to political theater and personal gain. Whether it's Pelosi's stock controversies or a broader culture of insider advantage, many officials seem more invested in protecting themselves than serving the public. Laws meant to enforce accountability, like the Pelosi Act, remain stalled because those in power fear losing their financial leverage. Media figures like Jake Tapper, Joe Rogan, and others shine a spotlight on these issues. But real reform remains out of reach until Congress decides that transparency truly matters. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to see more content that exposes what really happens behind the scenes, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.